competitive effect that has imposed restrictions in the overall profitability of that particular industry. So whenever for these forces are benign, then that led to a lot of the industry getting better margins, like say Coke and Pepsi wars. We have seen these drinks; they were enjoying relatively good amount of profitability. Same well as when it comes to when the forces are very malign, like in case of this airline industry, textiles and hotels. The attractiveness is not very attractive, whereby they don't make much of profits in the process. So ultimately, what he says is it is not the industry structure of the technology, which we will discuss in greater length at a later stage, like what is how the industry evolved and what are the strategic changes which came into existence. So these forces combined together, they have a kind of a limit which they impose, where it may either be attractive or it may not be that attractive when it comes to profitability. So what are those forces? First force in any case, industry rivalry.
So
Rivalry, like what we have seen in case of Coke and Pepsi, what it happened. See, when and for that we need to connect with the industry life cycle. When we understand in the industry life cycle, industry starts with an introduction. There is an idea or innovation, a new product or a new firm has come into existence, and that firm, when they were introduced, they come up with a particular idea or with a particular product. That product will have only takers who are risk takers, and then who wanted to so-called experiment with something novel or something innovative or something new. So those people that catches up, and initially due to the so-called since this so-called technology is still in a rudimentary stage, there is inbuilt inefficiencies. At the same time, costs will be much higher because there is no economies of scale. At the same time, since it is still evolving, a lot of changes, they come up with the teething problems, a lot of issues. Like when, for example, during our generation, we might have seen introduction of the so-called cellular network or cell phone. So initially, when it came, a lot of the drop calls used to be there. There used to be a frequent breakdowns, and then from there it has evolved to a stage where you have uninterrupted. Even now, I don't say that there is no such problems exist, but yes, comparatively it got reduced, because in the growth stage, when the demand is far outstretching that particular that of the supply, it keeps growing. Since the supply is lesser than the demand, the industry grow. In this process, new entrants come into it. They will find it very attractive to enter this particular stage, and then at this stage, it will be more of standardization, like what we have seen in case of matching Dell, where IBM clones have become an industry standard with the Wintel model. So that is where that standardization comes into picture. So during the standardization, there will be intense rivalry among these firms, and one compete with the other. In the process, there will be a lot of reduction in prices, which boosts up the demand. Once the demand has grown, so the prices fall down, and then comes is a stage where there will be a maturity whereby the growth is restricted, or rather the growth will be mostly of replacement, and the new entrants will be far less. What we exactly witnessed right now, either in computer industry or even the so-called cellular network, whereby a few players are there. So during the consolidation phase, most of the old rivals, either they will go for mergers and acquisitions, or some people will quit that particular business. So this happens during maturity, and later it will coincide with the something called as a decline. So since we are into the so-called, the capitalism space, whereby I think I have to, I used to narrate this particular theory, which is called as Schumpeter's theory on capitalism. There is something called as a, destructive, creative destruction. So the old things, whatever the old technology is being destroyed with the innovations, because a set of innovators, they come up with new products, new things, and then that leads to once they destroy the old technology, and they slowly shift towards a new industry, like what we have seen. For example, the radios, when they were in decline, they have switched over to televisions. Television companies, few have switched over to something called as either into the cell phones, or into that so-called TVs. So computers. So these because they found this into something called as a similar kind of a technology, whereby there is some complementarity effect. So that is how it happens, and finally it will this innovations, after a set of innovations, then it will rejuvenate, like it will lead to reduction in the sort of innovations. Finally, it lead to decline, and again there is a this cycle continues, right? So this is in nutshell about industry life cycle, so which has a bearing on the industry which you are entering into, whether you are entering into a matured market, whether you are into a market which is about to start being a technology leader, and or whether it is in a growth stage or in a decline stage. That decides whether your market is attractive or not. Then from this comes is the threat of new entrants. The new entrants, when they enter, they always come up with a new model or a new structure. For example, Dell have entered into the computer space with a totally different model. He has adopted the Wintel model of IBM, and where the entire industry, because of isomorphism, so the entire industry standard became like you have to sell your product through a channel of partners, like is right from distributors to wholesalers, distributors, then your retailers. So there is a heavy chain. That chain, this Dell has understood the entire of the model, and then he said, no, let us get away with this. Let us enter into a different structure and a model. So that model is a direct sale model. So that threat is always there whenever a new entrant enter into a market. Later, there was a heavy competition in that particular computer market, that computer industry, and later led to few of the giants collapsing later, like which we have seen. IBM has shunned the entire of their businesses, and they have later shifted to so-called only into servers and other software development, whereas they have totally they sold their computer operations or PC and laptop operations to their own supplier or supply partner, Lenovo. So these are certain examples where there is a threat to new entrant. So uh, then comes is new entrant. It all depends, on, first of all, how many competitors are there in that particular market. Then what is there? It is related to industry rivalry, right? Number of competitors and their relative size and power vis-a-vis others, then the growth of that particular industry, which I have just explained, and the amount of capex plans each of these players are putting into, then capacity augmentation, whether it is large, continuous, incremental, and then whether it is a commodity or a differentiated products, and then what kind of exit barriers they have. So they decide the industry rivalry within these companies. Then comes is the threat of entrance where what is barrier to entry is really economies of scale. See, the entrant, whether he is coming big or he is coming as a small player. Like, for example, in Indian cellular market, Reliance Jio, when they came, they entered with a huge economies of scale, whereby, some of the existing players like Vodafone and Idea, they are almost, out from the market. Now they are totally into red. So because of the economies of scale, and also even Airtel had its own problems once these Geo has entered into it. So they have to adjust their entire strategies based on the new entrant who has come into it. Then what is the capital requirement? Like, how much capital is required? Well, if it is low, like hotel industry, anybody can enter into it. And if it is so high, like say like telecom industry or capital intensive capital good industry, there will be relatively very few people who will be entering into it. Then comes is how much of product differentiation is there. So actually, product differentiation, see, every customer or every individual is not the same, and they all have a range of products which they want. Somebody say within the TV segment, somebody want a luxurious maybe 83 inches or 85 inches kind of a thing. Somebody is quite happy with say 45 inches, yeah, 31 inches, which is as per his budget and requirement. So the more the product line, definitely there is a high chance that yes, you can segmentize and you can position yourself in a better way compared to your competitors. Then the amount of access to distribution channels. This is one of the most important aspect. Like, see, in matching Dell, we have seen that despite Dell coming up with the so-called direct to retailers or rather consumers, when they entered into the so-called distribution channels, they failed in that particular business because their model is not that their strength is not that particular distribution channel network, and they want to customize the entire product as per the requirements of the customer. Whereas in case of distribution channels, you are putting your standardized products into the market, where the distributor or the retailer, they have a scope to sell as per his choice, or rather his liking, or rather his self interest. So that part will come into picture. Then finally, it is expected retaliation. Like, how much you are expecting. Like the people, once a newcomer enters into a market, what is the retaliation expected out of the existing players? If the retaliation is very high, naturally entry will be, new entrants will not come into it. If the retaliation is much lesser than expected, a lot of people will come into it and flood the entire market, whereby many players may not make money. Like hotel industry is one where I think recently we have seen this. What is that? Very popular chain. What's that? I forgot that name. So, Oyo hotels now, they are out from the market. So that is because, of course, not only the expected retaliation or something like that, it is also because of the COVID. COVID and sudden decline in the business that has led to the so-called exit from the market. Then comes is the bargaining power of buyers. See, when a customer is there, and a bigger customer naturally tend to squeeze as much as possible in terms of reduction in prices compared to the small consumers. So, for example, airline is an industry in which the buyers like airlines, they put a lot of pressure on the manufacturers, be it Boeing or the so-called Airbus. both have a lot of squeeze whereby the margins are wafer thin because the buyers are too huge and they have much bigger bargaining power. Hence, they may also decide your industry the attractiveness where the margins may be much lesser. If the bargaining power of buyers is very small, like some, for example, the so-called CSD segment, the colas, cola where bargain by they don't have such a big bargaining power, so they can dictate the prices. And then when it comes to suppliers, if the supplier concentration, like for example, we have seen in the matching Dell, the suppliers, so-called the two suppliers, that is Windows and Intel, they had a monopoly over the entire market. They used to actually dictate the terms of this entire market, and irrespective of the model, irrespective of whosoever the company or the brand is, so they used to dictate the terms, and finally the customer had no brand loyalty, unlike the Apple model where it is totally proprietary. They have their own software, they have their own chip which is being manufactured. And later, if you see, if you go through that case study, you'll understand that IBM tried to promote their own the chip, or the so-called but finally they could not succeed, and they had to adopt to that Intel because they had something called as economies of scale, whereby they can bring down the prices, and that advantage is lost because IBM was a small player in the entire segment. So, and one of the other factors are like concentration as compared to the industry it sells to. Say if everything, just like I was telling you about the so-called Intel and Microsoft, the entire industry is focused on them. 95% of the market is controlled. The chip manufacturing is controlled only by the so-called Intel, whereas almost 90 percentage is controlled by Microsoft. So that much of concentration is there in that particular supplier, and they can arm twist, they can always decide what will be, whether a particular company is in or make or break, and they can mend the entire industry towards their side. And absence of substitutes also, will be one of the reason why there is a concentration or bargaining power with the suppliers, right? And then the industry is insignificant for supplier group. Like if the supplier group is so huge that a particular industry, say if it contributes to a very small portion of their overall entire business line, naturally they will not give much of an importance, and whereby they always can extract their pound of flesh from the firms or the players which are in that particular industry. Suppliers product having high switching cost. Yes, suppose in this particular, say if a particular supplier, if a particular say the buyer, purchaser, or in this particular case, say a computer company like say IBM or any other like Dell or something, if they want to switch over from say Intel to some other manufacturer, the cost may be quite high, which will prohibit them from going, and rather than they will try to stick to that particular supplier rather than try to replace them. So suppliers threat of possible integration. This has happened in case of Lenovo. Lenovo is a supplier. Finally, he has taken over the IBM. So this is related to your bargaining power of suppliers. When it comes to substitutes, like see, tea and coffee both are substitutes. Like you can switch over from tea or coffee or some other beverage which gives a similar kind of or for example, oil. You can switch over from mustard to coconut or to groundnut or sesame oil. So they're all substitutes for a particular product. If some company is into a particular, say, sunflower oil, they that if they are trying to increase their prices, naturally people can switch over to the other substitutes. And then yeah, that's it. So then the other thing is buyer switching costs. So if the cost of switching a particular buyer is relatively cheaper, naturally they have, there is a threat of substitution. So in nutshell, it is all about the five forces of industry attractiveness. Then we can go to other areas like, every other firm. See, firm has a birth, it has a death. We as an individuals or any organisms. So this is the beauty, and firm's life may be more than that of products. Like similarly, each firm will release a lot of products. Like say, for example, take the car industry. They may come up with so many models in their entire life cycle of that particular firm. But yet the firm continues. They continue to develop newer products. They will put into the market. They will try to segmentize. And there are certain areas where, like, textile is one, or the cloth, food, then the construction industry. So these are the things which will continue for long. They are not something cyclical in nature. They are non-cyclical. They continue to exist, and hence they may not be that unattractive compared to the cyclical businesses. What do you? Okay, now let us see industry life cycle. What are the most important aspects? Why there is an industry life cycle? What are the factors leading to industry having distinct cycles? One is demand, demand and growth. There, as I said in the past, like it can be a cyclical kind of a business, or it is totally technology driven, whereby whenever there is a technology driven industry, it has a possibility of technological obsolescence. Once it enters that particular phase, naturally the industry will die. Like for example, I told you in the past, like transistors were replaced by TVs. TV to certain extent replaced by laptops, or PCs then replaced by laptops, and then laptops slowly getting replaced by your handsets, that is mobiles. So, and whereas only way a particular company that could sustain is by rejuvenating itself, or entering into a different models. For example, like TVs, it started with a cathode ray tube wala CRT tables. Then it became flat. Then it became, we have the thin screens. Now it is into QLED, OLED, and all those things. They have rejuvenated themselves. They have remodified the old model, and they entered into a new model. And then this technological shift made that particular company to survive and sustain even for a longer period of time. This one. That one water for cookies. So then, apart from demand growth, the next one is the creation and diffusion of knowledge. see, any product, if it has to enter into a market, it needs diffusion of that particular product knowledge, so that customers are quite familiar with it, and they adopt to that. Can you feed me the You bring it. So that creation will happen depending on the company in which that particular industry is into. Say, for example, it took 30 years of steamships to have a competition between paddles, propellers, wooden hulls, iron hulls, and eventually between coal and oil. So, and whereas when it comes to TVs, it hardly took, or that so-called storage disk, which Jayantabai has given as an example. CDs are replaced by DVDs, then DVDs with hard disk drives. Now it is the so-called pen drives. If you see the cycle of change, it is hardly 5 or 6 years. And previously it used to be 30, in some cases it may be even 100 years for that particular thing to diffuse into the market. So then comes is one of the very important aspect in creation and diffusion of knowledge is related to dominant designs and technical standards. So we have seen, like in the Dell and that matching Dell case, IBM has standardized the entire PC industry into the so-called IBM clones with Wintel as a model, with taking the so-called inputs, or rather the so-called electronic products, and they have assembled and finally made it into the IBM clones. So that is one, that is standardization. Once there is a standardization, naturally there will not be any market leader. Initially, the person who has initially entered the market with that particular standardization, he may have a first mover advantage, but that first mover advantage will not lead to sustenance in the long run. So that may be lost in case if say a new player come up with a better alternative models, like matching Dell. The Dell himself, the Dell company, it came up with a different model. Instead of going through retail channel partners or distribution partners, they have directly, had a tie-up with that of customers. So direct sale is, they came up with a new business model that could sustain, and that also led to, in the long run, to companies like IBM, Compaq and HP. Later, they both have merged. Then Gateway is totally lost from the market itself, though they were almost competing with matching with that particular, with that of Dell. So it is all nimbleness and the kind of strategies they adopt, and how they are positioning themselves and how they are seeing through the future. So these are one of the major aspects which any company has to take into account. And then comes is from product to process innovation. So product, when they start innovation, they come up with a big innovation, one time innovation, whereby later there will be incremental changes to the existing model. Whereas if you keep on changing the process, like what the TVs have done, TV, as I explained in the past, they have changed itself with putting more and more process into it, and then bringing new technologies that rejuvenated it, and it went a little ahead of compared to that transistors, which has totally lost their business once TV has come into existence. So this is in a nutshell. And then life cycle, whether all the industries will have the same life cycle, this is what is the number one question. So naturally it won't be having the same kind of a life cycle. If you see the so-called hotel industry, it is It is in existence since more than say in fact 2 millenniums. It is said hotel industry. It is also said like what is being quoted in the text is like Bethel when Jesus was born, he did not get the inn, so his parents didn't get in, so he was born in a stable. The same way, at that time itself there is an inn, and inn is replaced by hotels in US in the late 18th century, and that hotel is still continuing. But whereas there is a little bit of innovations like whereby that hotel industry is replaced by something like residential sharing services such as air B&B. So they have transformed that entire segment of hotel industry. And as we discussed in the past, like digital audio players, they are totally out from the market. They were introduced in 1997, whereas by 1990, 2009, they are out from the market. So it all depends on whether that product is technological intensive, what kind of a industry it is into, and how fast there are changes in the technologies. The technological changes are much lesser, like basic industry, like metallurgy and metal industries. The technology change over the last few centuries is very much bare minimal. Same as with transportation, like trains or railways. Over there also there is less of technological innovation, and that is why that continues and sustains even further forward. Then there are certain you know you can say industry structure and competition. So there are so many segments to it, as we have already discussed.
Suresh, I can't see any presentation. Are you presenting something?
No, no, no. This is not a presentation. This is basically given in your, what do you call, material.
Fine, fine, fine.
It's not a PPT.
Okay.
Actually, he has given it as an additional material connecting what he told as a strategy.
Okay. Good. Right.
So this is the basic foundation on which we have dealt with two strategies, like two papers. One is sorry, two sessions.
Hmm.
One is on industry attractiveness based on Porter's theory. Then
Hmm.
this is basically this perspective will make you understand what is a strategy and how it evolved and why it evolved.
Got
So
it.
this is a theoretical perspective. So again, as I said, what are the implications of life cycle for competition and strategy? See, how will you survive? How will you sustain? Whether the life cycle can be sustained, what kind of a strategies a particular firm has to adopt. It all depends on, as I said, either you are a technological leader or you are a cost leader, or what you have access to the so-called raw material sources, or you have access to distribution channels. So any firm or any company has to finally identify what are their core competencies, whether they are market leaders in technology or they have access to raw material source where they say something like let us say steel plant, right? In steel plants, Tata Steel has access to all the raw materials, that too within a very less, within a very short distance. Say that because this steel industry is a weight losing industry, weight losing in the sense to make 1 ton of steel, they have to use roughly 3 or 4 tons of raw materials. So it is heavily resource intensive, or rather raw material intensive. So when you are putting a lot of raw material, naturally you have to put yourself or source yourself at the source itself. If you place your company near to the source, naturally your profitability will be high. And then another example is Vizag Steel. Vizag Steel don't have any captive mine, though it is a market leader when it comes to technology and the quality of product. Since and also it is one of the lowest cost steel manufacturer. But because it don't have access to raw materials or mines, it is relatively expensive. So this is an example like how this particular, how that raw material sources will help them. And then there are technology. Technology is one of the factor. Like for example, say you take Tesla into consideration. They are the market leaders when it comes to electric vehicles, and then they have gone very bigger into technological innovations, and they have invested huge into the storage or the so-called batteries. They have tested and tried a lot, in Australia and all. Once the battery solution has come up, I think EV electric vehicles will become it will almost you can say outsmart the existing diesel and petrol or fossil fuel engines, vehicles. So this is second thing, and then how much of patents they have. Some companies, they have a very strong patents. This control over the patents will give them a monopoly over that particular thing. Like say for example, we have seen this during COVID. Companies like AstraZeneca, then your so-called ceramic, say Serum Institute, Pune, or Moderna, or even that Astra, that what is that another company, US company, which is quite popular. So they all have access to that particular uh, uh, product patent. Once they have a patent, naturally nobody else can enter into it unless either they yes, Jayanta.
Uh, I want to add one thing. This is absolutely in the interest of just knowledge, not anything exam oriented. Regarding the patent in the car maker, since I was with Mercedes, Mercedes has 80,000 patents, and they are number one. Number two is Audi Volkswagen Group with 11,000 patents. So you can see the gap. Now, one of the noble thing from Mercedes is most of the safety related patents they had made available to the other car manufacturers also without any cost. I just wanted to share this. Yes, they have invented this and they have made all the safety related patents available to the other players also without any cost.
Free of cost.
Free of cost, yes, since this is humanitarian ground.
That's good. That is nice. So next is like the product differentiation. How, what kind of, as I explained in the past, how many products you are developing and which segment you are catering to, they also matter a lot. And then again about organizational structure, how you are structuring your organization. Yeah, and then what kind of whether you are putting any dynamic or you are constraining it with too much of rules, whether you are rule based or whether you are compliances based, or whether you are nimble footed, you have the so called dynamic or flexible kind of organization structure. And companies with a very rigid kind of structures, yeah, so they always have issues sustaining or making themselves change to the adapt to the changes which are brought in by either changes in customer choices or technology or geopolitics or whatever. All the changes, these we are flooded with. We when we are into a business environment, we are flooded with so many externalities that decide whether how we are adapting to it. If we fail to adapt, naturally, and there is a saying, Charles Darwin says, sorry, it's very simple. It is not the strongest, fastest, mightiest, or or you can say of the animals will survive, it is those animals which have adapted to change, they survive. I think cockroach is an example that has survived for centuries without any evolution. So whereas dinosaurs, and there are so many reptiles or so many animals that have become a fossil, right now, even the giant mammoths, they also became a fossil right now. They are no more. So it is how a company adapts itself to the changing environment that decides whether they are going to stay or they are going to be out from the particular market. So this is, and again, they are saying about, you know, competency traps is one thing. As I said, it is about rigidities. If a company follow a particular rigid kind of a routine, they are the ones who are not going to survive. It's called as a competency traps. And then there is something called as institutional isomorphism. Like entire industry will comply to a particular way of dealing with businesses. So that is isomorphism, which we have seen with the Coke and in the Cola wars, Pepsi and Coke. They were you know, following the same kind of strategies. So that kind of a thing will be institutional isomorphism. They also are akin to the rigidities, and once this isomorphism sets in, it will be difficult for them to adapt to the changes. And the other aspect is like there is some concept called as a bounded rationality, whereby we as a human beings, we have our own limitations. See, we are in search of a new product or a new person or a new access to a new raw material or something. Once we find that yes, we found the right person or a right technology or a right resource, we stop searching any further. So that if you are bounded rational, naturally there is a threat that you cannot sustain in the long run, and you may not survive. And there should be again a complementarity between the structure, your strategy, and your systems. All should be aligned to the organization goals. Only then the companies can sustain and survive. Then I think managing change, all those things, I think they're all quite this one. I feel it is they are saying about talking about structural. They're coping with the technological change. See, this is one of the biggest challenge currently. You know, competence enhancing, whether that technological change either enhance your competence. Like, say, for example, when it comes to transistor business, the transformation to TV has become more easy because they are dealing with a similar kind of electronics and semiconductors. So they understand that technology well. It is just an advanced version of, you know, transistor to TV. So they could understand. Whereas that is called as competence enhancing. If they are competence destroying technological change, like somebody who is used to, for example, say, rickshaws are totally replaced by the autos. You know, auto having much more power and quicker and easier to ride and giving a riding comfort to the customers. They could slowly eliminate the so-called manual pulled rickshaw. So that is competence destroying technological change. Then there is something called as an architectural and component innovation. If a particular component of that particular, you know, product or a segment is changed, then it is easy for a company to adapt to it. Whereas if the entire structure got changed, structure of that particular technology, totally, you know, it will be very difficult for a company to survive. And there are something called as a disruptive technologies, which I explained in the past, like, you know, some for example, steam engines are totally out from the business after diesel engine and electric engine has come into existence. So steam, with its all inefficiencies, with a much more resource intensive, inefficient, and without tapping there is a lot of wastage of energy in the form of steam gushing out. So that is replaced with much more efficient engines of be it diesel engine or electric engine. So that got replaced. So that is a disruptive kind of a technology. Whenever there is a disruptive technologies, the companies or the firms which are into that segment will be totally wiped out from the market. So there is a challenge, and they have to constantly either reinvent themselves or to shift to a different kind of a segment. Like if you see these days, the energy producers are shifting from the coal and oil based to renewables. So that is a shift. If that shift is not being conceived, naturally it will have a natural death to that particular industry or even to that firm which is not adapting itself. So now comes is the managing change. Change is something very painful, and nobody likes any change because fear of unknown, and we are very comfortable with our so-called comfort zone. So how a firm has to organize or manage changes? You have to manage change by structural dexterity, meaning whereby you have to position yourself for the present as well as adapt to the future. So you have to do both the things, and it will sometimes it is the shooting in the dark may not work out. Sometimes you will decide how that particular company can push the entire innovations forward. So this is one, and then how to combat the structural inertia. I think you understand what is a structural inertia. Once a set of procedures or processes are set in, and there is an internal rigidity either in terms of technology or in terms of acceptance by the people who are in that particular industry, that leads to something called as an organizational inertia. How will you counter this? The best example is by creating perception of crisis. This is successfully experimented by the legendary CEO of General Electric, Jack Welch. He always used to bring in the perception of crisis. So once people have that perception that there is bound to be a crisis and we have to come out of the crisis, then we tend to get the best out of us rather than having something called as business as usual. So, and there is again a very important dictum which is called only the paranoid survive. That is driving Intel into innovations, and so much of they are almost into a lot of innovations. They put a lot of R&D money into R&D. They develop new products every now and then, and they release into the market. And because of this particular drive or the so-called paranoia, the competitors of Intel, be it AMD or any other companies, they could not sustain and survive. And then there is one more concept again. It is very much very well executed by Jack Welch, called as establishing stretched targets. Usually, people are comfortable with achieving a particular target. If once you start asking people to stretch a little bit, and that is where people are they have to do a little bit of extra effort, they have to do a little extra mile, and in the process they are adapted to changes which in future to come, which may bring in a lot of a distress or stress to the organization, and sometimes it may threaten the survival of the company itself. So the next important is like catalysts of change. Catalysts of change are some of the people, who will be like, it is a combination of various initiatives. And in that, a charismatic leadership is what is very much essential if you want to drive this particular catalyst of change. And again, it is successfully done by Jack Welch of General Electric. And what they used to say is, his very favorite slogan: GE should either be number one or number two in the entire industry. If you don't be number one or number two, you better spin off. But it is like survive or perish. So, and then another thing which is called, what he said is, G is in a growth engine, boundarylessness, Six Sigma quality, destroy your business.com. These are the slogans which are adapted as a catalyst of change. Then you have to, the second.
Only another 1 minute.
1 hour. Okay, so next will be like, how will you reorganize your company structure? See, with the technological forces, changes in the so-called changes in the behavior of customers or customer choices and preferences, political changes, right? These all things, they Deepak, this is based on what is given as a study material. This is not in the PPT, but this will help you because the entire strategies is dependent on these things. So, yeah. So you have to organize your structure. A lot of models used to be there. Like we always have seen that theory X, then it got shifted to theory Y. Then a lot of collaborative theories, and then group dynamics. Some focused only on organizational behavior, some on group dynamics, some on a kind of a flexible kind of a structure reporting system. Previously, it used to be a hierarchical, whereby chain of command is unitary based on Webb's theory of bureaucracy, or so-called. It's one of the very famous theories that has said that there should be unity of command and that there should be a hierarchy. So that those all things are totally changed. That is called as that comes under reorganizing a company's structure. Then comes is the leadership. Leader brings with him a kind of a strategic vision and a way of delivering the same thing in a different way. The leader don't do things differently. What they do is they do the routines in a different manner. So, and they have a strategic vision, and they come up with a different kind of an ideas, and they come up with a lot of strategies that will make that company, like Jack Welch. We have taken, for example, under Jack Welch has prospered like anything. Otherwise, it was a decaying kind of a company. So such kind of leadership is very much essential for the sustenance of any company. And then another very important aspect is the scenario analysis. So whenever we come across, we get a lot of external information from the business world, the changes which are happening in technology, all those things, social, economic, technology, your legal, environmental, so many changes we are flooded with. And now we have a particular way of handling a business. And when we are handling a business in a particular way, we have to have a scenario analysis whereby we take each parameter into consideration, or certain set of parameters, and then we analyze how will it be. Like in a hypothetical situation, if we adapt to this X technology with assumption that the customer choice is X, and then this is the segment, this is the geography, so on and so forth. This scenario analysis will help you to understand where we will be heading towards and how we have to position ourselves in the present as well as for the future. So this will help us to make whatever the organizational changes. Who is that? Like PPT? Actually, there is no PPT in this particular thing. Naveen, there is no PPT in this.
I know,
One of
I know Suresh, but Deepak Jain asking, right? So that's I'm saying that
Yeah,
you are
yeah,
not hearing anything, right?
no. I told him already.
Right.
Actually, see, frankly speaking, I just read it today itself. Otherwise, it was a huge, maybe some 50 or odd page booklet it is. So I just went through very fastly and then just trying to explain you. These are all in any case. This is what, in fact, which happens within the industry also. These are the things which you as a business leader you have to take into consideration. And then there are so many other models also. Like how will you develop? One of the most important thing is we have our core competencies. But the core competencies at present may put you in a position, pole position. And that may not necessarily lead to leadership position in time to come. The leadership is so in a state of flux and so dynamic that small change may either make you or break you or push you out of the market. So how will you develop new capabilities? This is like what we have to see is we usually what we do is we totally dependent on our experiences and then path dependency. For example, Walmart, when he initially started his company in the state of Arkansas and Oklahoma in US, what he found is there is a high level of unreliability when it comes to supply chain or the vendors. So what he did is he done away with everything and he has started his own distribution network. And that is how he became a pioneer in the field of the so-called retail segment. And now anything whichever is at a grander scale is said to be Walmartization. So that is based on one is he has understood based on his experiences what are the practical difficulties his company is facing with. He came out with a model, with a different model. He put it into an action. He tried and experimented with one particular store. He found success, and it took a lot of years from multiplying it from one store to the next. So once he learned that is called as a steep learning curve. Once experience curve and learning curve is steep and they have learned and they have changed. See, we all have learning, we all experience, but unless you put that experience and learning to action and make it even more better, either efficient or resource intensity is reduced or cost effective, then only it will bear fruits. Otherwise, it will be simply a wastage of time and energy. And then various companies have adopted various kind of strategies like ExxonMobil. Their core competency is all about financial management. And then that is the competency. Whereas Royal Dutch Shell, they have decentralized their entire businesses. Their you can say the core philosophy is that they say the local leader or the local whosoever the in charge of that particular unit, he is in a better position to know what the exact situation, what the market demands, or how he has to position himself in a particular different market segment rather than somebody centrally controlling it. So they have a decentralized global network of companies, be it in Russia or you can say Indonesia. They have different strategies for each business unit. So that is how, and then they what the advantage with it is they didn't go it astray. Rather, the headquarters used to coordinate with all those things to ensure that the organizational goals and whatever the objectives they have to achieve are put at the forefront. And then BP, British Petroleum, they have something, a strategy called as elephant hunting. They discover huge reserves. Their thing is only into discovery of huge reserves, be it petroleum or natural gas. They initially discovered huge reserves in Persia. Then they went on to find in Alaska. Then your North Sea. North Sea is in between England and Norway coast. So that, and then there is one ENI. ENI is basically a Italian company. Their core competency is deal making in politicized environments, or they are good at lobbying. No, we call it as lobbying. And then Mobil exclusively is into only one particular segment called as lubricants. So that is how they have developed distinct capabilities. So you have to develop those strategies and capabilities based on your the resources at your command, and then the experiences which you come across along with the team. Only then you can sustain. And then second is like, how do you have to integrate your resources to create a capability? How do you integrate? You have to integrate processes. Then your process should be efficient, repeatable, and reliable. Then comes is the structure. How you put a structure to it? How people and the processes are finally, like interlinked or integrated. Then comes is motivation. How do you motivate the people who are working with your organization? How do you motivate them? And then most often, one of the major reasons for failure of businesses is not that they are not doing well. It is more about people get demotivated, disgruntled, or they don't find any motivation to stay in that particular job or do particular thing. So in order to keep them engaged, like for example, Bayern Munich football team, they do something called as a orchestra, where they combine the leadership skills in a way that they have a good amount of wait a minute. They integrate the entire of the team by creating the capabilities within the team, having a kind of a high level of coordination between the coach, the team members, identifying them, and then they put a lot of focus on huge fee which is given to the coaches so that the best outcome is extracted from them. And then next is organizational alignment. How do you align the entire of the resources with that of your organizational goals? This is another aspect. Then there are dynamic capabilities in which you identify your capabilities, and you make an order of it. Then you make prioritize the higher order capabilities, then make use of those capabilities to the maximum so as to achieve the best outcome. So this is in nutshell about this. Then again, you need to do something called as a user knowledge management. We all have huge knowledge bank in terms of whether it is resources, whether it is key persons or technology or R&D, all those things. Ultimately, you should not ensure that the knowledge which a particular company gains over a period of time go waste. It has to be properly utilized, and then that particular knowledge is being utilized for, it may be human resource, or it may be an experience, it may be markets, it can be technology, it can be anything. That knowledge is to be First, we have to know what the knowledge is. We have to identify the kinds of knowledge, and then we have to put focus on various kind of things. And then, like for example, knowledge identification. Knowledge identification is one of the process. You just it is in that particular thing. It is like intellectual property management. You identify all the patents which you have and try to guard them. Identify how much of that life is still left out, and then how how fast they are going to be depleted, and whether you could have alternative patents or technologies or processes in place, and so on and so forth. This is one. Second is like corporate yellow pages, like
Daddy, now. Daddy, now when will your class be over?
10 minutes. Okay, good.
No, 10 minutes.
So, in case of BP, they make use of personal data of individuals, to identify the skills, various attributes, and all those things. Those skills and attributes and experiences, they use it in such a way that the skill is not, wasted, and rather they are being managed efficiently. Then another thing is like knowledge measurement, intellectual capital accounting. Scandia is a company which has pioneered something called as intellectual capital accounting, whereby they make a valuation of and they basically measure and value the company's stock of knowledge. And Dow Chemicals is another company which uses the intellectual capital metrics to link its patent portfolio to shareholder value. Like how much patents do they have, and what is the value which they give to the company. That is what is being taken into account. Then there is something called as a knowledge retention. Like US Army, there is US Army Center for Lessons Learning Details Distills. Okay, what they do is whenever they go for any say a battle or battleground, they learn a lot of lessons, and what they do is all those maneuvers and those skills are they simulate it with the use of various simulators, and they use this to train and teach their future combatants. So that is how they do that knowledge retention. Then comes is knowledge transfer and sharing. Databases, in any case, I did not discuss about it. So you have a database in which all the resources or all the information which can be one stored, two retrieve, three make reports, four analyze all those things for future. So next is communities of practice. Basically, they are self-organizing networks for transferring experiential knowledge among employees who share the same professional interests. Like, for example, practicing chartered accountants having a chapter whereby they keep discussing or conducting events to increase, improve the so-called professional knowledge on various aspects and topics. That is the kind of communities of practice. Then
During December 1st, can you purchase some crackers when it's Christmas? We can eat.
okay. Best practice transfers, like whenever a company is dispersed geographically, like say an American company spread across all six continents, they disperse their practices wherever, say in Asia, say in Japan, they adopt a particular best practice, then that is replicated all throughout their entire organization where they have various locations. So that will help retain the knowledge and make best use of it. And finally, it is again big data analytics. I need not tell much about it. So these are the ways and means in which the corporates have to evolve their strategies and make use of the understandings which they develop over a period of time, so that they can prosper. So with this, I think the theory part is over. So now, if anybody wants to discuss about those two sessions, like that is, one is related to Cola Wars, and then the second is related to Narayan Hrudyalaya. They are welcome. Actually, see here, it is not about all the minute details. It's more to do with the strategies or the learnings which we had. So anybody would like to say something about those two cases? Jayantabhai, Praveen, Velu, Shivkumar, Manish Bhai, all silent. Sandeep Bhai. Huh? Naveen Bhai, you are asking something, right?
No, I was not asking anything, but I would like to really understand that the initially 5 quarters, 4 C's and all, right? This is something
Right.
the business has to look out throughout the industry cycle, right? Because
Absolutely.
you continue to have the threats from customer, from suppliers, new entrants, right? So
Yes.
these are the, like, that's why it is being called, like, you can look out of all those threats throughout the industry cycle, right? Whether you are new into the industry or you are already reached to the maturity of your cycle, right?
Right. Actually, they are the forces that determine the outcomes within that particular. If a firm has a good understanding, fair understanding of the forces which are in play, they will adopt to the best or to those particular industries. They'll definitely come out with better strategies so as to counter their competitors. Ultimately, see, there are two things which are more important for any industry. You know, any firm is in existence for two things. One is income maximization, the other is wealth maximization. Right? Income in terms of PAT. The more the PAT they get, that is income maximization. The wealth is the value they derive from, say, net worth, or you can say price per equity. If it is in a listed, it is a listed company. Naturally, it is current market price that determines the value of a company. So naturally, anybody who is investing, they are either into that or this. Income, we can count in terms of dividends also. How much dividend the company is paying. So these are the two things, which is basic crux of any company. Otherwise, if these two or either of them goes down, that means the company is into losses or downward spiral.
Right.
So, any other thing like Jayantabhai? I could not find you.
Sorry, I was mute. Honestly speaking, I told you in the very beginning that today I am not mentally prepared to. So
That is why we should not have a long gap, because that so-called inertia will creep in. You are used to that. Even for me, it became a big challenge. No, because I was thinking there is a lot of time. Let me do. Then that never came. Even on Saturday, Sunday, I wasted a lot of time. So ultimately, what I feel is, yes, we need to have regularly. Otherwise, we will lose track of it. Praveen, Velu, Deepak, Sunita, Sandeep, Preeti, Manish, Jitendra Bhai. Anybody? Jitendra Bhai, I would like to listen from you.
Yeah, actually, Thank you very much. Actually, that you have mentioned about very theoretical and detailed session about strategies and implementation. I just can tell you, might be it is useful for all of you guys how we have done it. It is very important to have this understanding. Along with that, how we have done it actually, we have just the kind of questions are coming. These are coming from all PPTs. All PPTs I'm talking about that the professor have presented during their session. And in the second term of exam, we have seen a lot of questions from the study material. So while see from the PPT, what we have done it, we have divided say session wise among 10 or 4 people. We made a team and we tried to find out the questions, and then we have run through all these questions. So these sort of thing, if you would like to add, also would be very useful, and definitely we can help you out. Like whatever questions we have prepared, we can share with you so that you might get idea. So yeah, so that is I think might be useful for all of you for preparation of the exams.
Actually, see, Jitendra Bhai, already Vineet has given us.
Yeah.
Vineet Jindal, no?
Vineet Jindal, yeah. Vineet
Yeah,
Jindal.
he gave us your study material.
Okay.
Actually, he said one more thing also. I don't know how far that is true, but I assume what he said is right. Like he said, despite all that preparation in the semester way, module 1, module A, the questions are totally different from what you people have prepared. Is it?
Yeah. Majority of questions were different, but we got the idea actually, and how to see when we prepared the question. Okay, so there is a difference. When we initially prepared the question, we might have run through the session and the material only once. Okay, but before the exams, we again could get the time and we can run through, and then I think it was a very good idea. And we could make it, and I think majority of people scored a good amount in first examination, then the second one.
No, I heard Ulta. They said that module 1 was not that great, but module B you all did well.
On a casual note, what I have heard that the module 1 exam was tough.
Yeah.
And after seeing the results, the scores by the people, they had made the module 2 exam a bit lenient. This is what I had heard. I don't know how much it is true.
So I'm telling you my experience. So since the second module, actually, I could not prepare and I could not, go through the study material. So I got some 60% test marks in second module. In first module, we were, involved and we prepared that. So I got more than 73-74% type of. Okay, that was a combination. Or दोनों का combination मिला के I got the 1%.
This is good score, I guess. Very good score.
आपका तो बहुत ही अच्छा score है.
No, but everybody is having that sort of score. Like majority of people were in excellent or good actually. So many people were in excellent and good category. So you also see that is why I'm saying, because all of are at I think are at equal level. So I think even if you would be able to go through that, I can share some sheets I have prepared. Like I have written down on one register some questions, some notes. These were very useful to me. And 2 days before exam, I just prepared those only. So
if you can share with us, it will be of a great help.
No issue, sir. No issue. It's definitely I can share. No issue at all. So, but if you will refer that, you need not to worry about it, because we were also so much concerned and worried about. But you have to give some time, you have to go through the material and particularly, there is if you just look at the PPT also, the PPT which was initially circulated, and PPT, during the session, the professor has made some notings also. So there were certain questions from those notings. Like, for example, I just give you some simple answer. They will ask you, this was one of the questions, what is the meaning of strategy? So there were 4 options. It's a long-term planning, it's a planning, or it's a decision making. So these kind of options were available. So the question will come like that. And one of the questions, you will be surprised. Have you gone through the case study of ITC?
No, not yet.
So ITC, I was also surprised. They asked one question that Dr. Chugh was the chairman during which year? So that was the question. That also made me surprised, and that was the question they asked in the second session. So
Googly.
Yeah, so that is why, and that is why sometime and there was 2-3 calculations. The Excel is allowed. You can open it. I think you can close all other window. Just keep your Excel sheet open. And there were some calculations with reference to IRR. Okay, and these were of 2 marks, equal to 2 marks. So that also, there are 2-3 models that definitely that this Porter 5, AAA, they will ask questions from these models. That one of the question was like Porter 5 model applicable on farms, industry, that way, market. So that sort of questions was also there.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
अच्छा ये बताइए how many are problem related, like
Just like example Bayes theorem we have done very recently.
calculation based कितना है?
Yeah, there were 13-14 questions with reference to the calculations. Some were very simple, so those were carrying 1 mark. Some were little difficult. So you will have Excel to use, so you can find out immediately.
Yeah, what are those, like usually what models they use to give?
So these one of that is that model from probability, Dr. Shah. I think it was Dr. Shah. I just have to Bayes theorem. One of the
Bayes.
Yeah,
Bayes theorem.
Bayes theorem. Yeah, 2 or 3 questions were from Bayes theorem, and
Bayes theorem.
Yeah. So yeah.
Right.
So and one more. I just forget the name of that model.
CAPM.
No, CAPM. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The CAPM was also there, but not the numerical questions were not there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just I'm just missing that model actually. I will definitely.
Tell me the area so that we can find it out. Like, कौन सा session का है? Any idea? Mutual
Maclum theory.
It is like it was the session before the Bayes theorem. I'm just missing that name of that theory. So we'll definitely put into the chat box, like sorry, in WhatsApp. Yeah, I will mention that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And what else?
And how many total questions were there out of?
I think in the first exam there were 63 questions. So
Total marks was 100.
Yes.
Okay.
Second exam?
Second exam, I think there was total 40 questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many marks?
Second exam marks, I don't remember. I think it was 70 or something. So, but I don't remember exactly. I will that also I will come back.
Jitendra bhai, you got 60 out of 70. Oh my God.
No, it is. I'm telling you, percentage wise.
Percentage why?
Yeah. So see, if you are getting 69, you will get excellent. Huh? I got 68 point something, but I didn't get excellent.
Okay. Chalo. More
Yeah.
regrets.
Yeah, no.
So second exam
It
timing.
was
Second exam timing also was 3 hours or only 2 hours?
no. That was only 1 hour. Second exam
Oh,
was
1 hour.
Yeah.
1 hour. Okay. First exam?
That is too fast.
First exam was for 2 hours.
Okay, 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours, 100 marks.
Yes.
It is injustice.
No, you will be able to do it. You will all of you will finish on or before time. So just go through that and just read the study material and the more important, the PPT they have shared is majority of question from there.
Okay.
Some of the answers are lies in the class or like the lectures which they have delivered might not be on the PPT.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Yes.
Jitendra bhai, one more question is that in few case of the PPTs, those were not discussed in the classes, but those had been given by the professors. So would you recommend to cover them also?
So normally there are very limited questions from the case studies. One like the reference questions was coming from Tata, the conglomerate case. One reference questions came from I think G, but it was only reference that and that study material. In the second exam, whatever study material they have given to us, so there were many questions from there. Which you can directly find out the answer from the study material.
Apart from PPT, they have given extra material, right?
Yeah, that's study material, reference material.
That is also important.
Yeah, second term it was very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the
But
first
we have not been provided with any study material, no?
नहीं दिया है केस स्टडी मटेरियल जो है ना
No, not case study.
No, study material. We have not been provided.
It is study material. Like there was a topic on design thinking. There was one study material on strategies also. So there were some questions from there. But I think that will come when you will go to campus visit.
नहीं कैंपस तो बाद की बात है.
अच्छा. I think that exam will be scheduled after that.
नहीं, our thing is before campus.
Yeah. So that before campus, that's the material which is provided.
Sandeep bhai, yeah. Yes.
The study material which is provided by the professors, and if you can go through some clips of videos, like wherein the Porter 5 model was priced or summarized by the professor, if you will go through and you find that, and there will be some answer of the questions. You can identify if you will watch 1 or 2 times. Important thing. So there will be some questions, like if you talk about strategies, there would be some 14-15 questions. They will give you that detail also. Like these are the topics and you will get so many of questions from each topic.
पोर्टफोलियो मैनेजमेंट है ना. म्यूचुअल फंड ये सब का इम्पोर्टेंट है.
So that is also important. Some 8-10 questions will come from there also. Like
8-10 questions.
Yes.
पहले वाला सेगमेंट में जो प्रोफेसर रे एंड वो जो कौन है सोमवंशी.
Yes. Rajvanshi, I think
Rajvanshi, right?
Rajvanshi.
Professor Rajvanshi, yeah.
Yes, there will be
कितना आएगा?
8-9 questions will be there, and there will be few questions related to these trading also. Mutual fund, some questions will be there on type of mutual funds. Okay, like hybrid stand for, there will be 4 options. Okay, call put options, trading may. So these kind of questions will be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So हम लोग actually see what we are doing is, Jiten bhai,
Yes, sir.
what we are doing is we are first focusing on having a group learning, and this entire session is recorded. So anybody who has missed it, they will be given this link also, audio link, so
No,
that
that's very good.
though they can go through or see what is being discussed. And then later we wanted to complete the entire 25 sessions, so that the last at least 2 weeks we can have, like what you were saying, like we all will complete our one reading or something like that. We get a degree of confidence. So we will make some kind of question. Even Google Forms is sufficient enough, and in that itself you can give that what is that scoring also, which is correct, which is wrong. All that scoring can be done.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that also I am just exploring. So we will do it. Like, actually, we are thinking, let us have as much discussion and understanding of the subject first. Then later we will go it.
No, absolutely. In fact, today I also learned a lot of things from your session. So it's absolutely refreshing, and there is a lot of value addition. Okay.
So one thing I want to just share that I had a lot of confusion about put, call, long position, short position. I had it actually, since I do not deal in that practically. When this session, our internal session like today, we had it and it was very clear to me. So this is the benefit of this type of session.
Yes, actually, see, I have circulated, in fact, a form to everybody, so that whosoever want to present, we will come to know, and then they are doing the preparation. In fact, it went on well. This is today we have covered 8 sessions. Like previously it was 6, and then today 2 more. So like that, we wanted to cover as much as possible. I think 25 sessions is for our module 1. So
yeah,
we are just 1/3. We have finished only 1/3 of it.
See, I can tell you there is one person, Mr. Vikesh, who is from CFO batch 1.
Okay, right.
He had a wonderful experience in all stock market and all these things, and he took our session also.
Great.
So, and uska 30-minute will be enough from, that is my understanding for all of you.
Really, if you can just talk to him, and then if he can take us, maybe he can give any date. Accordingly, we will get prepared.
I will request him. No issue. I think he would be happy to come and to discuss this. So I will request him, and will definitely, and on this all, that that trading wala portion, he will, I think, mutual fund and
Disconnect हो गया.
Basically, what you mean to say कि everything is important यार, कुछ हम छोड़ नहीं सकते, सब में से कुछ तो आने वाला है. थोड़ा करके उन्होंने सब बता दिया, इसमें से भी आएगा, इसमें से भी आएगा, पीपीटी में से आएगा, स्टडी मटेरियल में से आएगा, इवन लेक्चर के प्रेजेंटेशन में भी आएगा.
अरे
I am telling you one thing that एक summary बनाना पड़ेगा. Anyway, yes, Jitendra bhai.
Jitendra, you are mute.
Unmute, please.
Yeah. So I'm really sorry. Actually, I think I got disconnected. So I will request Vikesh, and he will come, and I think there should not be any issue. So he will help us in this.
Great.
Yeah.
And we'll adopt to his convenience and his timing. We will do that.
So we understand we are all the same party, actually, same from the same background. So we understand that, and he will come. I think Saturday, Sunday might be some convenient time. So I will request, and he'll come. Yes.
Actually, see, we don't mind. Actually, we are also preparing for this. you guys also come up, like there is nothing like that. Like we can have joint sessions.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it is learning for us also as well. It is always. Yeah.
एक्चुअली क्या है, जल्दी जो है ना, लास्ट 1 आवर में मैं थोड़ा सा वो ऐसा ही ये करके किया था. अदरवाइज सी इनर्शिया हो गया था. सी we were every week we are going for 2 sessions. We are covering 2 topics each day. So in between, Praveen has got he had a surgery. So थोड़ा सा inertia आ गया, वो जो है ना, वो थोड़ा सा laziness. Once it came up, like everything went to a toss. So today वैसा ही किया था, ठीक है, that's okay. But to have
Yeah, but it was wonderful session, sir. It was wonderful session, and again, I'm telling you, we it is a refreshing and new learning for this. So it's very good actually.
Suresh, you have covered a lot of the things. That's the reason we do not have much points to talk.
Actually,
we have also not done much fully prepared.
I think Professor did not cover most of the things. He covered other aspects, especially POTAS वाला जो है, वो अच्छा सा cover किया है. POTAS का
full length cover किया था वो.
हाँ, he covered a lot of aspects, issues, and he went into minor details. That part. Anyway, देखिए, see, what in strategies you need to have that basic understanding. That's it. और भी बहुत है यार, वो strategic management का बहुत सारे books हैं. They explain even better.
Absolutely.
But for that we need to take a lot of time and then prepare and then present it. So it's a huge task.
And have you anybody? Any of you are in connection with Prabhu?
Which one? Who is that?
Who is was again from P1. So he was preparing a lot of notes. He was very excellent actually, and he's doing, I think, simultaneously he was doing one course from IBS. So he has prepared a lot of notes. I will request him also. He also will share.
Actually, in our group we have Sanjay Bantia, who makes a lot of notes.
Great.
Unfortunately, he is into one project.
Okay.
They are. I think this month they may launch, or it may spill over to next month. So till then he is totally busy. Otherwise, he said he loved to give presentations and all. Now he's not. He's in the thick of that. So otherwise, we would have come up. Like there are so many people in our batch itself.
Correct.
Even Anand Bhai,
Anand also, yes, of course. वो भी अच्छा है. So in any case, there is no easy way out to clear that exam.
So no, actually, again, since if I tell you about myself, I have done it. So when we were at ER stage, we were also that much worried, But when we gone through and we find it is, good, and they also give a second chance if there is any, and that happens only in case when you are not able to attend the exam. So there will not be any such issues, but again, only the thing is you have to go through, and only you need to just prepare 1 or twice. You need to go through all the study material.
Absolutely.
PPT basically, the PPT which they have presented. So majority of questions will be from there.
Right.
Like especially that trading part and mutual fund, I think there would be a very big PPT, and everything will come from that only.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Actually,
CAPM model and valuation model and CAPM model, kindly go through that appropriately. There will be few questions from that, because professor must have noted on their screen on CAPM model and valuation model. So there will be few questions from there.
CAPM ठीक है. CAPM we don't have much of a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. The formula is quite simple. Base formula is something which needs a little more preparation. Bayes theorem है ना, actually see, I am from maths background, maths, physics and chemistry.
जी.
तो वो हमारा ग्रेजुएशन में आया था Bayes theorem.
So we have to be basically strong.
Basically.
Yeah, the fundamentals should be very strong.
Fundamentally, yeah. You should have conceptually you should be clear actually.
What I actually meant is not basically strong. So the base theory.
Like at the start of today's session, I requested or I shared my view that to start with the strategy, instead of looking into the portal's 5 forces and all, basic question which I'm still not clear, like what is the true meaning of strategy, right? And how we can be confused with some effectiveness measures being taken by the organizations time to time, right? So
strategy kya hai na? How do you put your plan into action? You have a plan, you made a plan. How you put it into action is what is strategy. You adopt various kind of methods. Understood? उसमें क्या है कि as sir said 3-4 methods तो बताया है ना, पहले वाला with the least resources, and then there will be a trickery. Like I'll tell you one example. Either in China or Japan, either of these two countries, there was a war between two kingdoms. So they were stationed at a particular location. The only difference between both the camps is like there is a mountain which is dividing them. So either of them could not see how were the entire army of each side. So they all have their own so-called espionage or spies. Those spies, they got the information. The army which was weaker, they got an information that the other side is so strong and these people are going to lose the entire battle. Right? Then the general of that particular army, he said, okay, we have a method. What we will do is we will shout with the loudest of our noise, all at a time in a synchrony. They started shouting and with a huge roar. That gave such a ripple. The other side of the camp, the enemy camp, they thought these people are so, they came up with such a big army and then we will be outswam. By the next day morning, they all vanished from that entire camp. So these people won without fighting.
Yep.
This is an example of using less resources with a trickery. The other example, Bakhtiyar Khalji, you might have heard. He is basically I think he's under Khalji dynasty. I think Tughlaq or Khalji, either of these two people. During that time, he came, he disguised or he guised himself as a oil merchant. He entered into Bengal. At the time, Sena dynasty was in existence. So Lakshmana Sena was the last emperor of that dynasty. So he entered into his capital. It is, I think, Navadvip. Navadvip. Okay. He entered into that particular entire. He entered into the fort of the Nawab, and then that Lakshmana Sena. These people could not recognize and realize that these people are oil merchants. Once they entered in the night, in the pitch dark of the night, those 12 people started slaying people like anything. Once they started killing, then the entire army, they thought that a big army has come, and then Lakshmana Sena, he left off from that place, and then finally these 12 people have taken over the entire Bengal dynasty or Bengal. That is again a trickery with only 12 people, guising themselves as merchants with very minimum resources. Only thing what they had is they had the guts in their hearts. With that they could do it. They executed to perfection. 12 people could totally exterminate a big army, and they ran off. Finally, they got it as a booty. And of course, Bakhtiyar Khalji he became a little more overambitious. He tried to adopt the same, and when it comes to Assam, finally he was killed in the battle.
Yep.
So these are all trickeries. There are so many ways of adapting to it. Like we can connect it to real life things which is happening. Like you see that so-called Fortune Group, Kishore Bianis. So what Reliance and Amazon did, they eliminated a competitor, right, with a lengthy so-called legal battle, where Amazon, this Reliance told that we will be purchasing the entire group for 24,000 crores. So during the deal, he had taken over the entire resources. Finally, he made, he along with Amazon, they both, Amazon filed a case against it. And then finally, it landed up in a court battle. It became a sub judice. Once the matter became a sub judice, they could not take any decision. In the meantime, this fellow has started brutally taking over the assets of Kishore Biani. He could not pay whatever debt to the creditors. So he landed up finally into the suit. So this is one strategy. So there are many things, many strategies which we can discuss at length.
That
So-
I think we will be covering in next session, correct?
Yeah, next session we'll cover. In the next session, actually this session, I did not go through any of the PPT. I mean recording. I didn't go through the video recording of Professor. So I just studied these two study materials, and then I discussed about it. Maybe I'll do some reading. So we will meet on Thursday.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah, done.
Nice. Yeah.
Chalo.
Okay.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay,
Bye.
good night.
Thanks, Suresh ji.
Thank you.